everybody, this is what they call a Chamber of Commerce kind of beautiful afternoon here in Charlotte, North Carolina. Hopefully everybody out there is having a great day no matter where you are checking in today. Thought I would kind of give you a heads up, or I don't want to say a recap, but something that came in the education that I had this morning. One of the things that I went to was talking about the South Carolina laws and some of the changes that we're seeing this year coming through in regards to South Carolina real estate law. I found over the years that, you know, granted everything changes starting from the state of California and moves its way on east. And I've also found in being an agent with 2 real estate licenses that it seems like South Carolina is an early adopter, while North Carolina kind of lags behind in some areas. And one of the things that came out today was they talked about an item called transactional brokerage. And it really kind of struck me as, I don't want to say odd, because I've done it, I've been around it when it comes to the commercial side of things. And what that is basically, hey, listen, I know somebody who's wanting to sell a property and you're thinking about buying, and I'll go talk to somebody for you. It's not you have a real estate agent working for you per se, because you're not contracted to actually buy anything with them. So if you find something better, say if you found something better in North Carolina, you could just zip over the border and use that agent. So it's not a foreign concept to me, but it is a new concept that they're bringing into the residential side for folks in South Carolina. But granted, it will be coming to the North Carolina side. So I thought that would be a really good opportunity to open up a discussion when it comes to talking about representation and what real estate agents do for you. So, and I think transactional brokerage is useful in places where, say, for sale by owner folks, they don't really want or need a real estate agent. They just need somebody to facilitate the transaction. So I'm pretty much just a paper shuffler for them, but I represent the buyers when I come across a for sale by owner. So that's where I would see that come up most frequently. But on the buyer side, it really does not give you any advantage whatsoever. People often come to me, you know, usually folks that haven't owned a home before, or folks that have done this several times over, and they pretty much just need somebody to, you know, open doors and write some papers. So those kind of folks, you know, kind of tend towards, okay, I think I want to go ahead and do this by myself. But what they forget is the fact that in the states of North and South Carolina, buyers don't have to pay anything for representation. So sellers pay for everything. What? So who represents who? That has nothing to do with the conversation. So when we sign up a new client, say for instance, you come to me and say, Kath, I'm wanting to buy a house. And I go, great, okay, let's make me your official exclusive agent. So we're gonna sign paperwork to state that I'm your exclusive buyer representation here. But in that paperwork, it's gonna say that the seller's gonna pay for my commissions. So anytime I get paid, it's gonna be in writing. So you don't have to pay for my services, but everything, and I'm not biased in that regard. So the seller's paying my commission does not make me, him my favorite all of a sudden. I have a fiduciary responsibility to you as my buyer client. So the things that you say to me in confidence, I have to keep confidential. You know, things that you're hoping and praying will happen, you know, that, you know, the seller will take your offer at X amount of dollars, but you're willing to spend another, you know, $5,000 if that's the case. I don't have to share that with the seller. Now, in a situation where you are in South Carolina, they consider a customer or just somebody who doesn't have a client-agent relationship, and say, for instance, I'm the listing agent, and you come to me off of the sign in the front yard and you say, hey, I want to buy this house, and you happen to let it slip that you've been looking for 6 months in this school district and you have not found anything that's going to work for you, and this is the perfect house on a cul-de-sac right next to the playground for your kids, in the school that you've been dreaming to put them into, and you would spend literally $10,000 more if you needed to. What does that do to your ability to negotiate? Zero. It doesn't hurt. It does hurt you terribly. You have absolutely no ability to negotiate, because I'm now, as the listing agent, responsible for telling the seller, hey, listen, this guy's willing to spend 10 grand more because he loves this house so much, and he's not been able to find anything over 6 months. So that seller, of course, is going to take the top dollar and then some, if that's possible. So what does that leave you, a buyer, to do? My recommendation is you get exclusive representation. It doesn't cost you a dime. Now, I would obviously love it to be me, but if I'm not in an area where I can help you out, I obviously know folks who can. If you're kind of on the fence, you're like, I just don't know who to use. I appreciate these videos, Kath, but I know somebody who is in real estate. Great. Make sure they're not listing the house you want. Period. End of story. Because there's a situation that does exist where, let's say for instance, I have a listing. I've signed up the paperwork with that seller a month ago. And you've come to me in another reason saying, okay, I want to buy a house, help me buy a house. So we sign paperwork and I represent you. That house goes on the market. Guess what? That's the one you want. I'm in a situation now, aren't I? I represent both the seller and the buyer. What is it that I'm going to do? How am I going to make this happen? Well, that's a situation that we refer to as dual agency. I have an agency relationship with both buyer and seller. So it's almost like I have to play like I'm Switzerland. I can't commit to anything. So if we write an offer for that property, now I know everything about that seller because they've confided in me, because we had that kind of relationship too, about how much money they want to get for the house, about their plans, their timelines, things that might pressure them. Say, for instance, I don't know, say they're getting a divorce. Well, heck, hello. That gives the buyer some angle there, doesn't it? It gives them some advantage in negotiating. But as a dual agent, I can't disclose it to the buyer. It's just not, it's not something I can tell you. So, or for instance, say the seller's got themselves into a contract on new construction and they really are up against the timeline. I can't say that. Now, I can share those things with the buyer if the seller gives me permission to do so. Typically they won't, because that's going to hurt their negotiating power. So I have to say, when I write that offer with you for that seller, you ask me the question, will they take this offer? What do you think? I can't say a word. Conversely, the seller's going to ask me the same thing. Do you think that buyer will come up in price to meet, our needs? Or will they be willing to, pay their own closing costs or go without a home warranty or something like that? Again, I can't tell them. Now, dual agency situations do occur. It happens. It's happened to me twice in my real estate career. And if there are other realtors watching this, you're probably thinking, wow, kid, you missed out on double dipping there. I'm not a fan of dual agency. I'm really not. I actually sign all my listing agreements, my sellers sign, that requires them to have exclusive representation at all times, because I detest dual agency. It's the kind of thing where, as a buyer or as a seller, we've worked up to this certain point where a contract comes about. And this is where the rubber meets the road, in my opinion. This is where I know that the relationship we've built and the things that we have discussed, the things I've taught them, comes into play. So they really need me now more than ever. And it really puts a weird spin on things and a weird taste in your mouth when it comes to that relationship, when I can't tell you things. I can't advise you. I can't give you good counsel that I believe that you need at that time. So I avoid it at all costs like the plague. Now, if I were, say, your listing agent and a buyer came to look at the house without representation and they said to me, I want to buy this house, I could facilitate that for them as a non-represented buyer. But more likely, because I think to be fair and to do what's right by people, they need to have their own representation. It's not going to hurt me at all. Sure, I'm going to lose out on half the commission, but trust me, it's not worth getting in trouble over and losing a relationship. What I would do to that potential buyer, if they said, okay, I want to buy this house, I don't have an agent, I would say to them, great, let me make a few phone calls. I'm going to find you a real estate agent to represent you as a buyer in this transaction. Now, what does that do? That puts you into a situation of what they call designated dual agency. And that's where my broker in charge, he's a dual agent. I just made him one. Congratulations, Mike Casey. You are a broker in charge. You're a designated dual agent. But what that is that he's going to have access to all the documents for both buyer and seller. And he's going to have to keep those things confidential. He's not going to be able to, tell the other side what's going on unless it's a material fact. Say for instance, they discover there's a toxic waste dump in the backyard. Well, obviously that's a big deal and we all have to disclose that. So he can't hide that from a buyer potentially. But anything that's a material fact he has to disclose, but everything else he has to keep confidential. So each side gets their own representation. They get the same confidential ability to share information with their agent. They get guidance from their client in regards to all sorts of things. So, buyers come to me all the time and they say, okay, is this a good price for this house? Am I spending the right amount of money, or am I getting taken to the cleaners? I can do market analyses for my clients. I can talk with them when it comes to home inspections. I can talk with them about the results of the home inspections. Obviously, I have to rely upon my experts, meaning attorneys and inspectors, pest inspectors. When it comes to foundation, sorry about that, got another call. It's just a busy day. But I have to rely upon my experts. For instance, like if I have a foundation issue, I'm going to call an structural engineer. I'm going to have a home inspector. I'm going to have an attorney and a pest inspector to check for termites in this part of the world, because it happens, trust me. Those are our experts we're going to rely upon, but I'm going to be able to give you the guidance through the transaction and to be able to negotiate any repair addendums that you may need, or we call them due diligence requests these days. So there's a lot of things that I will do as a buyer's agent or as a listing agent in regards to a transaction. So the idea of this transactional brokerage kind of frightens me, honestly. And I think a lot of it probably comes from the fact that we've got way too many folks that don't do a good enough job of explaining the merits of having a real estate agent. And if you're in a buying position, there is absolutely no reason that you should be getting into a real estate transaction without a professional real estate agent. Preferably a realtor, and even more preferably, me. I would love that if you would call me. So with that being said, this transactional brokerage idea has its place, but I think that we need to look more thoroughly in regards to representation and what it is that we do. And I think we as real estate professionals, it's on our shoulders to explain it better to our clients and our prospective clients. So that's just kind of some of the takeaways that I had this afternoon, and I hope that some of that resonates with you and answers some of the questions, because that's one of the topics that always comes up, that folks are always kind of wondering, what the heck is this representation thing? Why do I need a real estate agent? What do you do for that money? So by the way, I see Samantha right there, and thank you so much. I love you. And even my little Jack, I love him too. And Sam right there, you see her saying hi. Sam is a past client of mine, and we had a lot of fun together, and we've had our trials and tribulations throughout the transaction. So needless to say, she knows, she and her husband know the benefits of having a realtor. So Sam, thank you for checking in, and for all those that are checking in on the feedback, as far as when this thing broadcasts later as a recorded, thank you for checking it out, and I hope everybody has an absolutely spectacular day, and if I didn't have so many appointments today, I have a feeling that I would be out either walking the dog or riding my bike, because it's just too absolutely gorgeous of a day to miss out. So I might actually try to, I don't know, multitask and take Indy out to do some marketing throughout the neighborhood. So thanks again, guys. Thanks for checking in. And if you have any questions, I mean, seriously, let me know. Whether it's feedback here or if you message me directly, text me, call me, I don't care. It's great. I love these things, and it gives me an opportunity to really connect with you guys and answer some of the questions that are really, really, really burning. The things that you want to know, but you're kind of afraid to ask. So I'm glad to be here for you. Anyway, you have a great day, and I will talk to you guys soon. See ya.